ultra successful entrepreneurs, you need to be thinking about the possibility. It's more important to be an investor in your business than it is to be the operator of the business.
Yeah.
And that's a mindset shift. And what I mean by that, a classic example is the founder entrepreneur that builds a business up to a certain point and finally says, this thing's big enough. I don't think I can be the CEO anymore. I'm going to
Yeah.
go hire a CEO.
Hmm.
Well, now you've definitely moved out of that operator
Yes.
mindset into the investor mindset. And I personally have been doing a lot of study and testing on Reddit.
Uh-huh.
I think Reddit is rapidly emerging as the 800-pound gorilla in that
Yeah.
space. And
Yes.
what I find interesting is people are very actively killing promotions. If your post looks anything like a self-promoting message, it gets deleted quickly in
Yeah.
most of the subreddit communities.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing. And I think it speaks to the idea that people are asking for dialogue.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Your Lab Central. Today, I have with me Doug. So, Doug, would you like to tell our audience why they should be excited about this conversation today?
Yeah, I'm so happy to be here. I help young next gen entrepreneurs and business leaders try to sort of elevate their game, being able to build teams, lead teams, and accomplish the great things they might want to get done.
Hmm. So, what's the first step that you help them take, right? Because obviously, there's a lot of things that we can do, but what's the first step that they should be taking?
Yeah, anyone that's wanting to stand up and become a leader, whether it's a corporate promotion career path or whether you want to be an entrepreneur and build a business, you are definitely putting yourself in a position of leadership. So there's more to, well, let me pause a minute. Let's focus on the entrepreneur. There's more to building a business than just having a great idea for a new
Yeah.
app or a service or an item that you're producing. You ultimately will need to build a team because no business can scale with one person alone. And as soon as you start adding people, you have become a leader, whether you want to or not. A
Yeah.
lot of people call it accidental leadership.
Yeah.
But the question becomes, what kind of leader do you want to be, and where do you think you want to take this team?
That's right. And now coming to the corporate professionals.
Corporate professional is an interesting journey because worldwide there's an odd practice of taking individual contributors that are out on a team, and the ones that are usually the best performers are the first ones to be promoted into a supervisory role.
Right.
And the logic says, well, if they're good at their job, then they ought to be the team leader. Well, that's not always true. Sales, I think, is a great example. You can have a sales person on your team that is crushing it. They're producing numbers off the chart, and you say, well, this could be good if I'll make them the sales team leader. Then the whole team will
Yeah.
provide those results. And again, that's not true. Sometimes you have just ruined your best sales leader. And when you put the burden of help having them coach other people or develop other people, that's not what they're skilled at doing.
Hmm.
And you cut their production and you alienate them in a lot of cases. But that happens in a lot of other disciplines too, not just
Yeah.
sales. So for the person that does accept the job and move into a management role, there is a need for some kind of development and training to be a manager or be a leader. And
Yeah.
there is a big difference between managing and leading. And that's where I get to do my work.
Now, there's one question that popped up in my mind right here. Okay, for corporate professionals, right? When an employee goes in that takes up a job, they expect to be promoted to a higher role if they're performing, right? They feel that they're performing the best, they're performing better than others, so they should be promoted to the next level. But then I don't know if they do realize that once they move up, the others are left behind on the lower level people below them, so they have to be managing them. So it's obviously implied that you are now their manager, but why are people not able to grasp the fact that now that is an additional role that have to be taken up once they get promoted?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it is one of the biggest challenges for first-time managers because you rise up out of the pool or the pod of where you were working, and now you're the team leader, and all of those people that used to be your friends, and maybe you would go party after work or spend the weekend together. You can't do that anymore. I mean, you can, but it's a different dynamic, and in a lot of places it's actually frowned upon. So you start by interrupting those friendships and relationships that you had with all of those people, and now you're holding them accountable for the work that has to be done. And that is invariably one of the first challenges a new manager faces is gracefully making that separation and then getting people convinced that it's okay to follow along and work with them. So that's a whole lot more art than it is science, and it really challenges an individual's the person that's been promoted to that manager. It really challenges their people skills, being able to have the one-on-one talks with people and say, I know this is different than what we used to be able to do. um, we're all here for our jobs and to get things done. So I'm inviting you to join me, and let's figure out how we can work together and make this happen.
So these new roles, right? Whenever somebody gets promoted, they might expect, they might not expect whatever changes, whatever new roles that they have to take up with the promotion, right? Now it comes with a lot of stress. There's a lot of mental dilemmas, just work pressures coming in. So how do you suggest people take over that? Is there anything specific you help them with?
Yeah, there are several different approaches to that, but probably one of the most fundamental that people need to think about is there's a tool I use in some of my coaching that we call it the wheel of life. You take
Okay.
a look at your personal situation, and the model that I use has 8 different categories, and it's like spiritual, physical, mental, family, friends, hobbies, work, and um, health. So you kind of take a look, you plot this out on a circle. Each one of those things I named is a slice of the pie, and you you have a scale from 0 to 10. You sort of plot out where you think you are in each of those categories.
Okay.
And if you've made the shift into the management, now you're feeling the pressure, so you're working some extra hours or maybe some time on the weekend. All of
Mhm.
a sudden, one of those segments gets out of line. You
Yeah.
start sacrificing friends or family for the sake of work, and now you get out of balance. And when you look at it as a wheel, it's kind of like a bicycle tire. And
Yeah.
if you can remember back when you were a kid and you crashed your bike into the curb, you dented the rim, and
Yeah.
now your bike doesn't run smooth. You're
Hmm.
kind of going ka-thunk, ka-thunk, ka-thunk as you go. And that's what happens to our lives when we take on these pressures. If we're not careful to self-regulate and manage our allocation of time, energy, and resources, we're going to get out of balance, and we're going to feel that rub or that thud every time that area comes around. So it's important to proactively maintain that balance.
Now, since you talked about the pie and the 8 facets of life, right? Now, I just want to ask, do you say that each slice of the pie is of the same size? Because do we actually put work, family, health, okay, and mental health on the same size on the pie itself, or do you say that different slices are different size?
In no, in an optimum world, you do. You try to allocate and balance everything you're doing so
Mhm.
that every sector is getting proper credit.
Hmm.
A lot of people in the work world, the first thing they sacrifice is their own well-being,
Hmm.
their own personal health. And whether you're a
Yeah.
person that likes to work out or go for a run or swim or whatever you do physically, you start sacrificing that time. You say, well, it takes me an hour to go to the gym and do all that. I'm going to cut that out. I'm not going to do it as often as I did before. Or you sacrifice family. You say, if you've got children, you say, I'm sorry, I can't come to the school play. Daddy's busy.
Yeah.
Well, that starts to take a toll at home. And it's that idea of sacrificing one slice of the pie in favor of something else. Some people get over motivated, if you will, or hyperactive on making money, and
Mhm.
everything else takes a back seat to their opportunity to make money. And that's not a well balanced life, and
Right.
it will catch up with you eventually. Usually, I was talking with a gentleman yesterday when we talked about this. Usually, for most individuals, when you've allowed yourself to get out of balance, two big life events change your situation.
Hmm.
Either if you're married and have a family, you end up being presented divorce papers,
Hmm.
or you have a personal health crisis.
Right.
You have a heart attack or a nervous breakdown or some kind of anxiety moment, and it will catch up with you. Our bodies and our minds can only tolerate so much without having other balance in our lives. So it's very important to work on keeping that wheel in a nice round shape. Now, scale wise, from 0 to 10, you might fall back and say, you know what? If everything in my wheel is a 6, I'm okay. I'm
Yeah.
good. I've got a great life. I'm making enough money. My family's happy. I'm good.
Right.
All
Yeah.
right. Well, that's good. That is a lifestyle that you've figured out.
Hmm.
But if you start saying, no, I'd really like to be at 10 in all these areas, well, that's going to take some work. You've got to do some other things.
Hmm. Now, this was from the corporate professionals, or should we just say, was it for everybody? I mean, the life, the circle of the spy needs to be balanced out for everybody. But
It's really everybody, and
yeah,
and you might actually argue it's even more important for the entrepreneur
that's right.
because
That's what I was
uh,
getting at.
the founder owner takes on a whole lot more burden of seeing that company be
Yeah,
successful. When you're in a corporate setting, it's a team sport. You've got a
yeah,
lot of people around you that are contributing, and you're one slice of the pie is not so big in the big scheme of things. I mean, unless you're you're a very senior executive in a
yeah,
company, and then that changes. But in general, if you're on a corporate team, you don't have the same pressures. So you might have a project that's a hot item, but you don't have
yeah.
the total success of the company is not on your shoulder.
That's
But
right.
for the entrepreneur, it is.
Hmm.
And one simple decision gone wrong can interrupt the whole thing.
Yeah.
So I would say the people that are more likely to get out of balance are the entrepreneurs
Hmm.
because you feel like you're on 24/7 trying to
Yeah.
make the company go.
Hmm. So, what's the special suggestion that you give to entrepreneurs? Because for them, balancing this pie itself becomes a task because they're not just doing simple work, they're handling one business which has probably 10, 15, 100 employees, and then they have their expectations, they have their paychecks to fulfill, and stuff like that.
Well, really, that goes back to what we were saying. If you're
Yeah,
the owner, founder of the business, whether you're 5 employees or 1,500, you're going to feel that pressure
yeah,
of keeping it going. The one thing in the spirit of keeping your circle well balanced and rounded, One thing I do a lot of work with entrepreneurs on is as your business grows and you start adding people, you need to be willing to delegate. You need to hire people that might start to create a middle management level in your business
Yeah,
and give them some of the burdens, give them some of the challenges that you took on when you started, and be willing to delegate and offload some of the burden that you've got.
yeah,
And quite interestingly, that's one of the areas where entrepreneurs often struggle.
right.
They aren't willing to give up, and they feel like they're giving up control if they do that. But the most successful entrepreneurs figure it out, and they willingly create a leadership team that helps them run the business.
Hmm.
And really, even more important, some of the ultra successful entrepreneurs, you need to be thinking about the possibility. It's more important to be an investor in your business than it is to be the operator of the business.
Yeah.
And that's a mindset shift. And what I mean by that, a classic example is the founder entrepreneur that builds a business up to a certain point and finally says, this thing's big enough. I don't think I can be the CEO anymore. I'm going to
Yeah.
go hire a CEO.
Hmm.
Well, now you've definitely moved out of that operator
Yes.
mindset into the investor mindset.
Hmm.
I want to see my asset grow, and I don't have to be the guy calling all the shots to make that happen.
And where does, I mean, is it just about the size, or do you say that it could be at any point of time that an entrepreneur realizes that, yeah, it is time that I move from the operator to the investor mindset?
Well, I think it's probably in a best case scenario, it's important that somebody who starts a business does try to get themselves in that investor mindset first. It's like, what am I trying to create here? Am I trying to build wealth, or am I trying to satisfy my ego by creating a name and a brand that, is me? And
Yeah.
and that's a big question. And I'm not going to be critical of the person that says, no, it's about me. I want the brand. Well, what I would tell you is you're probably going to end up creating a lifestyle business, and it's your lifestyle, nobody else's.
Hmm.
And hopefully you do whatever you've got to do to get enough revenue generated that you can, in fact, take home the profits that you want to take home to satisfy your lifestyle. But when you do that, you probably are not building a long-term wealth opportunity, meaning, that company may not be saleable in the long run
Hmm.
because you have too many of your fingerprints on it every day.
Yeah,
And a potential buyer is going to look at that and say, yeah, so if you go away, this whole thing crashes.
that's right.
And a buyer is not going to look at that favorably.
Hmm.
But rather, the other way around is if a buyer can look at it and say, at this point, it really doesn't matter if you're here or not.
Yeah.
That's a good thing. And if the business has a positive cash flow, you can do the math and you can figure out a multiple for evaluation on that business and have it be sold.
Hmm. So, how is your work ongoing? What are you specifically working on these days? Uh,
I do a couple of things actually. I do classic one-on-one executive coaching so I can work with that founder, owner, or corporate leader
mhm.
who is feeling the pressure of maybe kind of hitting a wall and feeling sort of plateaued. We can do the work individually to try to get beyond that. That's number one. Number two, I do work with leadership teams
Mhm.
in both corporate and entrepreneurial settings to try to help the team determine a new blueprint for moving forward,
Mhm.
whether it's scaling the business or solving a problem or, making that sort of milestone shift. And then number three, I also run some masterminds for
Okay.
leaders, And these are small group, peer-to-peer advisory kind of activities.
So I'm seeing a couple of books on your shelf at the back. Can you just tell me what Stop Leading on Empty actually is about?
Yeah, the three books on the top shelf are my main publications. I've got a couple more, but those are the big ones. Stop Bleeding on Empty is my most recent book. I've done some study, and there is a prevailing theme that people, leaders, both entrepreneur and corporate, are feeling this is bigger than burnout. They just
Yeah,
feel totally spent at the end of the day.
yeah,
They have no more juice in the tank. They're done. And
yeah,
there are some systemic aspects of that and how to overcome that. And that's what that book does. It gets into the three biggest challenges that leaders today in the modern world are facing and how to overcome those. The middle book is called Trust at Work. Um,
okay.
there's a phenomenon that's known as psychological safety in the
Mhm.
workplace.
Yeah,
So studies have been done about the highest performing teams feel a a psychological safety. They can speak their minds. They can contribute without ridicule or condemnation. And the big question is, how do you build that kind of trust so that people feel that safety? And that's what
yeah,
that book is about. And then the other one is called The Uncommon Commodity. It's a common sense guide for first time managers. That was my actual original book,
okay.
but it's a little bit of a handbook for first time managers to give them things to think about. It's an easy read. I mean, every chapter is a short. You can do it in, 5 minutes and have a thought for the day to carry with you and
Yeah.
go try implementing. So it's a how-to guide.
Hmm. So, are you reaching out to people through platforms? I mean, for promoting your books, also you might have gone to book signings or done some events, or probably just going out on social media. How's that coming along?
It's yes, all of the above. I am all over social media. I've got, a classic LinkedIn profile. I'm on
Yeah.
Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. I do have my own podcast. It's a show called Leadership Powered by Common Sense.
Okay.
It publishes twice a week. I've got about coming up on 450 episodes in the
Right.
archive. So on that show, I always bring a guest in and we talk about some of the hot topics of the day that leaders might be facing. And we talk about ways to overcome the challenges that might be out there.
So let's just talk about some hot topic that you recently talked about. What was the last one that came up?
Well, last one, culture is a big issue, culture in a business.
Mhm.
And this is true both for the entrepreneur and the corporate. The dynamics are different.
Yeah.
What I tell people when we talk about culture at work, culture is just simply the question, how do we want to do things?
Hmm.
How do we want to talk to each other? How do we want to treat each other? How do we want to talk to our customers and our suppliers? And so it's that how is the question. And I'll have clients in my one on one coaching, they'll say, well, we're trying to build this kind of a culture, but everybody is used to something else. I had a client recently, literally earlier this morning, that was talking about there's new management at their company. They're wanting to implement some change, but a lot of the people that have been there a while say, yeah, this is just the flavor of the day. I've been here 15 years and we've had 19 programs that have been introduced to us, and none of them ever work. We always end up going back to the way it was. And why should I look at this new one? Well, I would argue that's a pretty toxic culture. That's unfortunate
Yeah.
that people feel that way. And shame on the old leaders that allowed that to happen in that way,
Hmm.
um, to jaundice and bias people's attitude about the company.
Hmm.
But I hear that a lot. It's not uncommon. People feel that way. The new CEO rolls into town,
Mhm.
board hires and says we want to go a new direction. So the new CEO brings all these new programs,
Yeah.
and everybody's kind of rolling their eyes, going, "Okay, here we go again." And um, they kind of give lip service to it, and then they go back to doing things the way they've always done them, and that's a hard one to overcome, no doubt about it. And as we were having this discussion earlier today, I was reminded of a situation. One of the big companies I worked with a couple of years ago, the new CEO wanted to change the culture.
Mhm.
He said he believed the culture the way it was, which by the way was like 100-year tradition, was not going to attract new young talent.
Yeah.
And because it was a very heavy command and control mindset, my way or the highway kind of management style. So kudos to him for doing the hard work and the question of how do we change and what do we need to do differently.
Mhm.
But then it was a matter of getting all the rank and file, all the managers that had been used to the old style and had been successful in the old style to change their ways. And ultimately, what they had to do was they actually had to remove a few of the very senior leaders who weren't willing to make the change.
Yeah.
And nothing was really taking root until the CEO fired a very senior person for
Yeah.
not playing along,
Yeah.
not making the change. And then everybody woke up and said, "Wow, if that person can be fired, I know I can be fired. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna pay attention. The chief is really serious, and we are going to be doing this." So that one removal of an unwilling executive was enough of a message to everybody else that they needed to get on board. And sometimes it comes down to that. If
Yeah.
you really want to break old habits, you have to remove people that are guilty of maintaining that habit.
Mhm.
So,
Now, okay, I don't have a follow-up to this because it's just that there are a lot of observations that I've also made across the different clients that I've worked with, and it's just there, systemic and so, just coming up from somewhere. The root cause you'll have to find out over several discussions, trying to go through people's minds, sift through that, and stuff like that. Now, I want to ask you a little about your personal work, right? Since you're out there promoting your work and stuff. You're also working with leaders. So there's this specific question that I have. When you're going out there talking about leadership and trying to do it on LinkedIn or social media, right? Now, I've heard it from a few other guests also that I've had that we're not able to do the same things for ourselves that we suggest our clients to do, right? I mean, you give them certain suggestions to do for social media practices per se, but you're not able to implement it for yourself due to some or the other reason. Is it like that for you as well?
in a quick answer, I'd say yes. But I will qualify that a little bit more. I'm um, rapidly coming to the conclusion that there's a life cycle going on right now, a pretty big one
Mhm.
relative to what emerged as the traditional social media platforms. I'm thinking about Facebook, Instagram, even TikTok to some degree, Pinterest, and now LinkedIn.
Mhm.
I think all of those platforms are losing their luster for people who are trying to promote businesses because I think the world population is just tired of the noise.
Yeah.
I think they've gotten tired of the chatter and the promotional push. And I personally have been doing a lot of study and testing on Reddit.
Uh-huh.
I think Reddit is rapidly emerging as the 800-pound gorilla in that
Yeah.
space. And
Yes.
what I find interesting is people are very actively killing promotions. If your post looks anything like a self-promoting message, it gets deleted quickly in
Yeah.
most of the subreddit communities.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing. And I think it speaks to the idea that people are asking for dialogue. So I'll
Yeah.
give you an example. When I studied this for a while, I just kind of sat back as a as an observer. I mean, I had my profile and I was following some threads and I was commenting every now and then. But I finally launched out and I put a couple of posts in a couple of the communities. Well, overnight, one of my posts, I overnight it went up. I got like 20,000 views of the
Okay.
post in like 3 hours, and
Right.
I have never had that kind of reaction on any
Uh-huh.
of the other platforms. I ended up with about 130 comments. I ended up with a half dozen DMs that
Uh-huh.
said, "You, Doug, you bring some interesting points. Can we take this offline? I have
Right.
something I need to talk about."
Uh-huh.
And I didn't pay a dime for any of that,
Yeah.
and just and I just so I've done two or three more of those, and I've had similar. One of my posts made it to the number two ranking in that community for the
Right.
day,
Uh-huh.
and I'm sitting here going, "Holy crap! This is a big deal."
Yeah.
So I'm working hard to be very cautious and careful about how I craft my posts, but I do want them to be, I do want people to be curious about what else they might learn if we talk, and
Yeah.
that's become my market strategy right now.
Now that's an interesting perspective. It's for the first time that somebody has actually mentioned Reddit and engagement on Reddit for the real value that Reddit is providing and being the standout when it comes to all other social media platforms, right? Where everybody is just liking,
Well,
liking, liking.
one of the things that's interesting to think about it, what I do as a coach or an advisor, I'm going to meet
Yeah.
with a client like I would come to you or you come to me and you say, Doug, I think I need some help. And I would start out by saying, okay, what's wrong? What's going on? What do you need to know? Well, this is a dialogue. That's all we're
Yeah,
doing
that's
is
right.
dialoguing about your situation, and I can share with you ideas and things that I can do or might recommend. And even if it's not me, I may have somebody in my network I can recommend to help you. But
That's right.
if it's all a discussion, well, that's
Yeah.
what's happening on Reddit. It's just
Yeah.
discussions.
Yes.
People are saying, hey, I know a guy, he can do this or he can do that, he can help you. And people helping people. And it's an incredibly old fashioned idea. I know some
Yeah.
people are looking at Reddit and go, oh, look at this new thing. And it's like, no, it's not new at all. That's the way business was done for 100 years.
Right. So, Doug, thank you so much. It's been an incredible conversation going from leaders, entrepreneurs, corporate professionals to now social media and Reddit. So, thank you so much for joining me in. So, before we close, where can people get in touch with you?
The fastest, easiest way is to hit me on my website at Doug Thorpe, THORPE.com. I've got some resources there you can download for free, or if you want to just schedule a discovery call, likewise free, no hard sell. It will be a dialogue just like we're having here,
Yeah.
and would welcome anybody taking me up on that offer.
Thank you so much, Doug. It was great having you on this episode. For the audience and who's been watching and listening, the comment section is always open. If you have any perspectives, questions, or just you want to add more to the conversation, don't forget to leave a like if you liked what we talked about, and don't forget to subscribe before you close the window itself. Thank you so much for joining in. Thank you so much, Doug.